as usual. And today is episode 111, season 3. Hard to believe how time flies by so quickly. And today we've got a really special show. We're talking Masters. We've got some really great guests, including Mr. John Cook from the Golf Channel on SiriusXM, a very well-known analyst and a player in his own right, a little bit of a legend of a player in my book. How are you today, John?
I'm good, Roth. It's very nice of you to say that. I appreciate it. Thank you. It was a really nice run playing golf and doing that. Never really had a job in my life, honestly, and now I'm on the other side of the camera and doing some analyst and doing some radio stuff. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you here again, John.
Yeah, always a pleasure, guys. Anytime I can do your show, I love it. You guys are top notch. You know your stuff. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Keep talking. I love that. No.
Well, this segment is brought to you by Northwestern Golf Clubs. They're making a comeback in the golf industry, so we're excited to talk about that. We've got Mike Morgan on the show, and a little later we got Mark Immelman to do a little bit of a player breakdown for the Masters. But to talk to you, John, about what you're doing right now, tell me about the transition right now on the Champions Tour and some of your thoughts going into the Masters. But let's talk about the Champions Tour. How are you liking it? What's your schedule looking like?
Yeah, I'm doing mostly all the events on the PGA Tour Champions, with the exception of the ones that Network does. That would be NBC, and that would be the Senior PGA and also the Senior U.S. Open. So I'll be on the call for all the rest of them, and I'll be a mixture of walking on site and also in studio in Ponte Vedra in their new PGA Tour studios. So Bob Papa, who is the host, and Paul Azinger in studio mostly. Sometimes when Paul's not in studio, I'll be in studio, or Peter Jacobson will be in studio. So, and I'll be out walking. So it's a little bit different. Being on property, obviously on site, is what I would prefer. You're with the guys, you're doing your work, you're kind of doing your thing, and getting prepared for the show, but everybody else is in Ponte Vedra, except for the cameraman and a couple of the sound people. So it's a little bit of a transition, like talking to studio. There is a 3-second delay, so you kind of have to time it up right, and you get stepping on each other every once in a while, and that's never great. But it comes down to you're still talking about PGA Tour champions and the great players that are out there, the major championship winners, the Hall of Famers. So that part is easy. It's just getting used to the transition. A little bit of disconnect, I think, right now. I think the players miss everybody being out on site as well. So we'll see where that all goes. In the meantime, we do have a rookie coming out next year that might make a little bit of a splash and create a little bit of excitement.
That is true.
So you certainly want the top-notch production value, so everybody watching at home can get a quality product. We're working on that, but right now it's taken a little bit of transition, a little bit of getting used to. So we're excited. We've had great events, the 5 so far, with some wonderful winners. Great story last week with Steve Allen, his first win in 23 years anywhere.
Yeah, that's
incredible.
Right.
So to have a story like that, Jimenez is finding his game again, winning a couple times. You have Stephen Alker, who has been Mr. Consistency for the last 4 or 5 years. Also with the win, and of course Ernie winning at Hualalai to open the season. Those are pretty big names right there.
Well, even moving into the Champions Tour for yourself, John, I mean, 2 tour championships, other championship tour events, 10 wins, if I got that right, on the Champions Tour. So you had a pretty great little career after the PGA Tour as well.
Yeah, I had a nice run. They said that your window's 4, 5, 6 years. I had a nice 8-year, really nice stretch where I was in the top 10, top 5, most most every single year. So it was a beautiful run. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a second chance to do what you love to do, because when it comes right down to it, we're all competitors. We're all professional golfers. Your name's on your bag. I don't care what you've done in your career or in your life. You never lose that competitive edge or that competitive spirit. That's where I have to disagree with Rory a little bit.
Mm.
We'll see when he turns 50. If he misses that little competition, and if the
Right.
championship tour is still out there, maybe he wants to go beat somebody every once in a while. I don't
You
know.
got a point.
Maybe,
That's a young man's comment, though. You know
yes,
this.
it is.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you're
Totally.
not looking that far ahead. You actually don't even want to think about that. So
Yes, true.
I'll give him a hall pass.
Yeah, I'll give him a little bit of a pass, but when Ernie Els comes out and kind of says the same thing I did, that you never lose that competitive spirit. So why not go try to play? It's just fun. It's fun for those guys. You have Hall of Famers that are still trying to play, major championship winners still trying to play. For crying out loud, Bernhard Langer's 67 years old.
Yeah.
And he was
Nice.
on site last week on Monday trying to get to the golf course and getting ready to play. So, our names are on our bags, and you just do it for as long as you feel you can be competitive. And then you can go walk in the sun. That's okay too.
And by that time Rory gets there, the depth of field's going to be even deeper because it's the tour has really grown a lot in terms of quality of player, and every year there's a handful of guys turning 50, so it's just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, you're right, and I think for the dollar value for the sponsor value, they get a lot for their money. I mean, you can go
Absolutely.
PGA Tour, and I mean you can spend 30-40 million dollars on a week, where you can spend a tenth of that PGA Tour champions and get great entertainment value with like I said, Hall of Famers, major championship winners of hundreds of golf tournaments. And it's a great experience, I think, for the sponsor experience and their client experience. It's probably the best value going as far as that goes. So it's still a lot of fun. I love covering it. I love talking about it. I still feel like a little like I want to get out there and play, but I'm 67 years old, and I'm a pro member guest guy now.
Great. You could still be competitive. Well, let's shift over to the Masters just a little bit because we're short on time. Let's not kid ourselves again. You've got a great record starting back in 1979 when you finished 39th, and then you got a T21 in 81, a T24 in 1987, not too shabby at all. But 92, 93, 94 was your best run, anywhere between T54 and T46, and making your way through all of that right until I think 2003 might have been your last event.
Yep.
But what a wonderful way to play not only a few years, but from 79 to 2003. That's incredible. What are some of the memories that kind of stand out when you think of the Masters?
I love the Masters. It was always, when you're a kid, this little 3-footers to win the Masters, or when I got to the semifinals of the USAM in '78, the year that I was victorious, it was going to the Masters. You made the semifinals, you're in the Masters. So the 4 of us in the semis were all in the Masters. That's all you could really think about. So my experience is I loved Augusta so much. I loved it. And I loved it, but it didn't really love me back that well. I thought I would have a better record around Augusta with what I knew and who I was preparing and playing practice rounds. I just thought that my game would fit around there a little bit better than it did. I think I always got ahead of myself. I kind of overthought things maybe and didn't free it up and go play. But my favorite memory was my absolute very first one. And I got there in 1979 as the U.S. Amateur Champion, going to be paired with the defending champion, who was Gary Player at that time. And I played my practice rounds with Ken Venturi, who was my coach, my mentor, my great friend. He was still able to play. He was still very, very good. But he was always invited back as non-competing invitee. I played with Tom Weiskopf and Ed Snead for 3 straight days.
Wow.
And I learned, I soaked it all in, guys. Soaked it all in. I thought I knew so much. And that was the year Tom, he always played good around there. And I ended up making the cut. as an amateur, and I played that first round with Gary Player, which was very special, and I shot 71, I think. But Ed Snead was the talk that year. He was the one that had the
Wow.
3-shot lead with 3 holes to play, and eventually losing in a playoff to Fuzzy Zeller. So that memory of going back, that's so long ago. But
Yeah, but it
those
feels
memories,
like yesterday, doesn't it?
it
I
does.
mean,
It really does.
it really isn't that long. We know how time flies and
Yeah,
how we would love to just, turn back the hands of time sometimes and,
yeah.
go back and play again. However, it's wonderful. I wouldn't trade it for world. I always joke
Oh,
around with Mike that, I would not want to be in my 20s right now. I'm 51. I was such an idiot. I was so dumb. I wouldn't trade it,
yeah.
right? The life
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. It's so funny. Yeah. I got paired with Jack Nicklaus on Sunday one year, which was
Wow.
an incredible walk, as he was kind of winding down his career in the mid '90s.
Hmm.
But he was still making the cut, and I'm playing with Jack Nicklaus on Sunday at Augusta. I mean, good God, how
Uh,
much
What else can
fun!
you ask for?
Oh, it was just an incredible walk, and walking up to every green and the ovations that Jack was getting, and I would try to hang back a little bit and let him have his, walking up to 18 though, I kind of let him go up there, and he looked back at me and said, "What are you doing back there? Come on, walk up with me." I went, "No, man,
that's so
no."
cool.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Excellent. Well, we got Mark Immelman coming on very shortly. We're really proud to have John Cook on today, analyst for Golf Channel and SiriusXM, and doing a fantastic job. We love listening to his comments and what he's thinking. And so this is why, we're going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the picks for this coming Masters? I mean, there's so much going on. We've got a number of live players coming in, which aren't really in the conversation most of the time until the majors pop up. And a lot of people aren't following what they're doing. However, they are going to be a factor. There's no doubt about that. And then we have so many great players coming in as well, coming into form. Someone like
Yeah,
McIlroy, who's
right.
Yeah,
really getting into
he's
form with
trending.
this. He's trending with the Players win, and him not playing his best golf after all. And then we've got someone like Scotty Scheffler showing great
Yep.
signs with his putting over at the Texas Open. Your thoughts on current players?
Yeah, it's great question. There's like so many that are kind of right there, like the live guys. We don't know where their games are. We don't really follow or chase them much anymore. So I don't know where that's going to be. Obviously, they'll, Bryson, I'm sure will be ready to go, and Brooks would be probably ready to go, and a couple other guys are playing okay. It's hard to tell, but you're right about Rory. Rory's really played well this year. He's controlled his golf ball much better as far as his short irons go. He's really starting to master that part of the game that separated Tiger and separated Dustin and separated Koepka. When they got to their big runs, their short, their 150 and in game got a lot better. Rory is starting to go that direction as well. Scotty Scheffler, coming back from that unfortunate hand injury, is starting to gain form. He looks good. He looks really on point. He'll have a week to kind of rest and get ready for Augusta. He will be straight in the mix. There's no doubt about it. But those would be kind of the two guys that I would be looking towards. Obviously, there's so many other young guys. There's guys that need a good week. Xander needs kind of get back on track after his time off. He's starting to
Hmm.
maybe get find it a little bit. So there's so many good players right now. It's crazy. And you know what? Augusta has a tendency to expose your weaknesses, and if you're not ready to play at Augusta, it'll expose you. So we'll see when we get there and who we're talking about, and it's just going to be a great week. I love Augusta week.
We all do. You agree on that?
Well, this is really great. Your thoughts on maybe the golf course before we shift over and say goodbye. There's so much we could talk about. I mean, we could talk about that great menu that he has. We could talk about the golf course itself with the course, the holes that are just infamous for how they're set up and how they're cut and what condition they're in. Your thoughts on maybe your favorite hole at the Masters?
Oh boy, from that opening tee shot on 1 to that walk up the hill on 18, it's full of punch, counter punch. It'll kind of lull you to sleep, think that you've got it. Next thing you know, you're out of position and you're just trying to figure out a way to make a bogey. I mean, it's crazy on, what the golf course demands of you and what it asks of you right from the very opening tee ball. You can't, straight balls don't really work around there. You've got to maneuver the ball around the golf course. You have to know slope. There's no wonder why Seve and Fred Couples and those great players played so well around there for so long, is they understood slope and how to use slope to their advantage to slow the ball down. Instead of just going out every single pin, you have to kind of know slope. And that's what's so intriguing about Augusta. It's so different. There's so many nuances of putting the greens and pitching around the greens, but using slope is what I learned. It's what I remembered. And that's what makes it so intriguing.
Well, John, I just want to say thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure. We could actually talk for a few hours about Augusta. There's, I've got a list of topics. There's no way we can cover things. So we got a full show today. But thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, guys.
Thanks,
anytime,
Sean.
Always, and enjoy the walk and the scenery around Augusta National.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll see you in Calgary for the Rogers.
Perhaps. Sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
All right, guys. Thank you. Anytime.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was great. John's, knowledge and information that he has about not just as an analyst, not just as a player, but John Cook has done so much for the game, and we're just thrilled to have him on and come and talk to us about this. And right now we've got Mr. Mark Immelman. He's on the show. Welcome to the Golf Podcast Live.
Hey boys, nice to be with you. I hope you're doing well.
Doing great. Happy to have you back with us again. How about yourself?
Yeah, we're all good. It's been sort of a hectic run with CBS. We did the West Coast Swing, which is always fun. Some great golf courses and great tournaments and cool winners. And then I've just come off a little spin with ESPN Plus and PGA Tour Live. Just got home, in fact, from the Houston Open broadcasts, which was a lot of fun to see Min Woo break through. So it's been 10 to the dozen, but fun.
Oh, that's exciting. This segment's brought to you by Northwestern Golf Clubs. They're coming back into the industry, so we're really excited about that. For those of you who don't know, Trevor Immelman is Mark's brother. He's a Masters winner. This is a Masters show. He works for CBS Golf and on the Mark podcast. So we'll make sure you check him out on all his social media channels. We're really excited to talk to you about the Masters. Your thoughts on the state of the game right now? There's a couple of players that are trending. We just talked to John Cook about, Rory and Scheffler, maybe a couple of players that are not on most people's radars. What do you think?
Well, in terms of folks who aren't on people's radars, I think the way the game's been shaping up over the last little while, and you look at the winners, it's kind of some of the blue chip folks that are showing up, with Rory winning a few times, and Scotty has been around, and Ludwig Oberg has had a victory, and then, of course, Min Woo Lee, who's a lot of folks have been expecting a lot of big things out of him. So the state of the game right now is healthy. As we lead into the season's first major after what was a sensational Paris Championship just a few weeks ago, it's really exciting. And for Rory, for argument's sakes, it's as good as his played lining up the season's first major. So it's I live in Georgia. I took a picture of one of my azalea bushes in the garden, which is just beginning to bloom. So the weather's been right for what is going to be, I think, a nice springtime foray in Augusta.
It's like the unofficial start to the season, really. The eyeballs really, gravitate towards our sport right now. It's one of the best events of all time. Yeah,
it is. It's obviously been special to me and my family, but to being an international who now lives and is a citizen of the United States, the people over here and in the Northern Hemisphere who don't get television as much as what we do, televised golf, I should say, there's two big events. It's the Masters and it's the Open Championship. And the Masters is always the special one because it's the first. You always go back to Augusta National, which is special. There's so much history and allure and that about the tournament. And there's something about the golf course and the way it plays is that it always produces intriguing and fascinating storylines. So, yeah, it is kind of the crown jewel on the calendar, I believe.
I'm always excited to look at the players that people are not talking about. Mike and I have been discussing the fact that Angel Cabrera is actually coming back to play, which is interesting in itself. Obviously, people like Fred Couples are always fun to talk about, but and obviously us being Canadian, we're talking about Corey Connors, Mike Weir, and a number of other players. Brian Harmon's coming into his own. You got a new player who's showing his stuff like Joe Highsmith, or even a player like Nikolai Højgaard, who doesn't get too much talk, in my opinion, with his brother Erasmus. They're both playing in the Masters this year, and that's very exciting. You got Victor Hovland coming off that win in Florida. And we could just go on and breaking down the players. So very exciting.
It is. The thing about the Augusta National Golf Club, though, is that it loves its champions and the folks who've played well around there. It's not that there's a conundrum and like some sort of a riddle to playing the golf course, but you have to hit the appropriate shot. And there's a certain style that you must adopt and a certain managerial kind of approach to playing it well. So it likes experience. And if you're speaking Canadians, I feel like someone to keep an eye on might be Taylor Pendrith. He's long. He can draw the golf ball for a right-hander quite comfortably. He's a good putter. And in the last few years, he's sort of been the guy with all the talent that hasn't lived up to the billing as far as a lot of folks are concerned. And his first President's Cup, it really wasn't that good in Charlotte. And then he kind of came through and was a bit of a strong man in Montreal last year for the International. So there's a lot more confidence. There's some swagger about him and a lot of self-belief. And so all the expectations, I feel like, are being fulfilled a little bit. So if you're a Canadian, I think I'd be pointing my radar towards Taylor.
That's really great. That's a really good prediction. For those of you who don't know Taylor Pendrith, because we've got a lot of new listeners and viewers, he's Canadian. He's making his Masters debut. He has 3 top 15 finishes worldwide this year, including a T7 in San Diego and a T9 at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So really exciting to see him out there and playing.
Yeah, naturally, you'd want to consider Nick Taylor as well, who's just very rounded, and Corey Connors is the same sort of thing. But like I say, it's Augusta National is a different examination, and it seems to me like of the Canadian crew, which is very talented, I have my eye certainly on Taylor.
Yeah, that's really good. Nick Taylor, this is his 3rd Masters start. And so that's really a little bit of experience goes a long way on this golf course. And when we talk about experience, we're going to be saying farewell to a young gentleman named Bernhard Langer. Your thoughts and memories about Bernhard Langer?
As far as thoughts about Bernhard go, I have eternal admiration for the man. It's like he's evergreen. Yeah. He's found the fountain of youth, and competitive golf isn't just a function of talent and skill. You've got to make tremendous sacrifice to stay at the top of your skills and to work hard. And he invests oodles of time on who he is and what he does, and so you have to respect him for that. He is, every time he plays, he's relevant. And to be a person who's beaten the yips, I think it was 4 times, that is incomprehensible. So it speaks to the mental strength and the fortitude that he has, the resolute nature of him to be able to pull that off. And as it pertains to him, I've been fortunate to know him, to watch him play golf for many, many years. And it seems like he almost gets better with age. He's like a fine wine.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And and it's a guy who turned professional as a teenager. He sort of came along in the golden age of European Tour golf with Seve and Faldo and Jose Morella Tharbol and Ian Woosnam. And Langer was a part of that mix, and he was part of that European Ryder Cup team that turned the tide there for Captain Tony Jacklin and company. So, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, deservedly so, and he's a Hall of Fame human being as well.
Amazing. One thing I noticed yesterday, for one, it's a big day for Australia. Steve Allen on Champions Tour and Min Woo Lee on the PGA Tour. But I loved how Min Woo finished the day out. He showed a little character, made a wisecrack over a 6-inch putt, and embellished the lighting it up. And it just made me think of some of those old players, Chichi Rodriguez and some of the old characters of the game, which we don't see so much. I thought it was refreshing to see Min Woo behave like that.
I did an event for an organization a few days ago, and I was giving a golf clinic because that's kind of what I do. I'm a teacher deep down, and so I took questions and answers afterwards. And one of the questions was, why is the professional golfer so monotone, kind of thing, And I was like, well, you got to look at various factors. There's a lot of money in the game, a lot of prestige. Sports psychologists now are a very big part of the equation, and so the sports psychologist advises, correctly so, to keep the process as they mention, and to keep golf in its place and to be focused and all that sort of thing. So you're seeing a number of players sort of acting the same way. Contrast to back in the day, like Chichi and Trevino and company like that, Fuzzy Zeller. But then you have Min Woo, who is not afraid of the spotlight. Certain folks shun it. He loves the attention. I think he thrives in the attention, and in a funny sort of a way, I think it may be born a little bit of the fact that his older sister is a better golfer than he is.
Right.
So he has to kind of make his own identity, and he's done so. And the cool thing about Min Woo is the guy you see on television is the guy that happens off the television. The guy you see inside the ropes is the guy you'll see outside the ropes. So he's a character. He's wildly talented. I mean, wildly. He's generationally talented. And for him to ham it up a bit with the crowds on the final green there, it's very true. It's on brand for Min Woo, and it's very true to form. And I was kind of, it was, you sort of know he's going to do it, but then you're unsure because it's the first win. And then the fact that he would do it anyway, sort of aim point that 3-4 by the way. It elicited a giggle from a number of us. So it was cool to watch.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, if you're just joining us, we're with Mark Immelman talking about golf. We're going to end off with just a couple of picks, personal picks. You're pretty good with these picks. I've noticed in the past, always winning your pools, whether it's on CBS and whatnot. I think it has a lot to be said about your experience and how much you know about the game. So give us a couple of picks, some of your favorites.
I've been banging the Rory McIlroy drum for a while now, and I'll tell you why. Rory to me is a Hall of Famer. The way he plays is kind of mercurial. And when he was younger, and he would be so aggressive that if it all was going his way, he'd spread eagle the field and win by like 7 or 8. But now there's some very deep fields, and then you hit one loose shot, and all of a sudden you get run over by 4 or 5 guys. And of course, now there's questions to him about winning major events, which I think are asinine, but that's an aside. But what he's done is he's continually learning, and he has almost reinvented himself to not just be the guy with a power who just will bludgeon a golf course to death. He can manage his way around there, and he's retooled his swing a little bit. He's developed like an off-speed, sort of a flighted shot to help with distance control with the irons. He isn't hitting wedges full bore like he used to. He's going in there with a lot more creative a bent when it comes to shot making. And you add that to the talent that is the T-ball for Rory, and the fact that his putting is really solid. His record in all the majors is great, and his record at Augusta National is great, despite the glaring omission of not having won. So I feel like if ever it was his time, it's now. Look, it's easier said than done, naturally, because there's so many factors at play. But But if Rory just keeps doing what he's doing, he's proved to us with the win at the Players Championship, where he doesn't have to have his best stuff to win.
Right.
He really didn't play that well or up to his standards down in Jacksonville at Pontevedra, but still found a way to win. And he did that last week too, where it was ragged in round one, didn't play very well at all, but got away with even par. And then just progressively got better and made a run on Sunday. And if he can do that here in a couple of weeks' time, he'll very much be part of the storyline. So I'm on the Rory McIlroy train. I really am.
Oh, that's really interesting. I'm not, just because of history. I'd love to see it. Don't get me wrong, Mark. I'd love to see it, but he's got that elbow issue that he mentioned that he needed to get some treatment for, which is a little bit of a concern. When he talked to, I think, Kara Dixon at the end of this round. But we'll see. I think there's an immense amount of pressure on him, but he's matured enough as a golfer where, just like you said, his B game is good enough on a regular PGA Tour event. Come the Masters, we'll see.
You see, Rafi, the fact that you would say that actually makes me even happier, and I like my pick more, because you got to beware the injured player a little bit, and the value. Well, here's the thing: unless it's some sinister injury, as soon as the adrenaline starts pumping, and it's gonna. You don't really feel, your body isn't normal anyhow. So maybe that injury sort of slows him down a little bit, plays within himself. Because if he does that, I mean, Rory could shoot in the 60s with half his set of clubs. So I'm still hot on McIlroy. I am.
All right. I'll hold you to it. And I'd love to do a breakdown of the swing. I'm a golf instructor as well. I'm celebrating my 26th year of coaching and instructing. So it'd be great to do some analysis and breakdown with one of you one day with you, because I love what you're doing on when watching the analysis that you're actually doing, talking about the swing. Drawing out the lines and really giving a different perspective. I think it's very progressive. You're not stuck in the old school thought, but you hold on to those fundamentals that I've noticed, and which don't really change all that much. Everything with the technology and ground force, and it's just a different way of communicating these days.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. That is a real compliment. Yeah, I would call myself, I was from the Sony Handycam PGA Tour instructor era, back in the 90s when we all had video cameras and would video stuff. Yeah. And then I'm young enough / maybe not old enough to sort of be involved with the current crop of instructors. And with my podcast, I get to talk with a bunch of everybody. And so, look, you're right. There's nothing new under the sun. I think it's all in the way things are packaged right now. And the golfers who get it, the golfers who, to me, stand the test of time, are the folks not necessarily with the best information. They have the most thorough understanding of who they are and what their tendencies are and what they're able to do. And as far as it pertains to swing analysis, that for me is kind of comes naturally, I guess, because I've done it for so long. But I'm also thankful and I'm fortunate that I get to spend time around these players, so I know what they're kind of doing. And then you get to see them operating under pressure, which is, as you know, has a big say-so in what technique is like. But all the same, it's a lot of fun. It's lovely to dive into the workings of the best athletes when they're at their best, and to be able to tell a little bit of the story as to how they do it. It's a responsibility that I don't take lightly.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing you once again in the near future, and maybe we'll get together and get a round of golf in at some point in time when we're in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to do that. We need to try and connect when we're up there for the RBC Canadian Open again. We love coming north of the border, and our CBS crew has had some of the best shows up there. I mean, last year, I was on the call for the Nick Taylor 72-foot eagle putt in the playoffs.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was amazing. And
historical.
And I've seen some shots in my career with my own two eyes, and that will probably be in the top 5, maybe even 3 shots I've ever seen, because of the way it happened, where it happened, the environment, the timeliness of it. It was incredible. So the Canadian Open is very special to all of us.
I think we could, it'd be great to have pod versus pod play a match against each other on the Monday after the Canadian Open.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring somebody in because I'm by my lonesome here. So I'll
yeah,
get Rory or someone to show Ruffy that he can really play. How's that sound?
yeah. As long as he's giving us like 20 strokes.
That's a deal.
All right, Mark. Well, you have yourself a great weekend, and we hope to see you soon.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Take care, Mark.
That was Mark Immelman from CBS Golf, as well as On the Mark podcast. Really great to have him on, get his perspective, and talk about a few things. I'm pretty excited, Mike. We do have Mike Morgan coming up from Northwestern Golf, as the show's been brought to you by Northwestern. I don't know that if he's in yet. However, we could talk a little bit about the Masters.
Yeah, he is not in the waiting room yet, but we'll give him a few. That's the beauty about live. But there's a lot of stories at the Masters, and I was going to throw in that I have a feeling Scheffler is going to pop through again. We'll see.
Oh,
He's trending as well. His game is always tight. He is dealing with that knife injury, if you will. But
yeah.
it seems like he's on the. That's in the rear view mirror. Pardon me, I'm tripping over my words. But I have a feeling we might see him there on Sunday. All right, he nearly won yesterday. So we'll see.
That's right. That's right. Well, let me pull something up here, Mike. What do you think about this over here? What do you think about that? That menu is very close, similar to what he had last time, and just very basic. It looks delicious.
It looks delicious, 100%. I would eat everything on that menu, absolutely. It does look familiar, but that's his choice. He did earn the right to pick that menu, and everything we've known, like you and I have never met Scotty Scheffler, but you hear a lot about him. We follow all the golf news, and he's a pretty low key guy from what we've seen. So I bet you he eats the similar types of foods on a day to day basis or week to week basis. So it's not surprising to see a familiar looking menu, and you might see that again next year too.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Scotty Scheffler. He's making his sixth Masters start. Obviously, he's got 2 wins. He won last year. Along with, I think that record goes with someone named Horton Smith to win his, 2 wins over 5 or fewer starts. So that's a pretty cool stat. He won by 4 strokes last year. It wasn't just by 1. And let's not forget who he won against, Ludwig Oberg.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really cool. And Rory was just there as well. Rory's all the talk. I wouldn't put my money on him just because I feel he's a little bit of a head case when it comes to that tournament in particular and what it means for legacy, for history. So Scotty's probably the safest pick if you're going to put some money on that.
Yeah, it's a safe pick for sure. There's dark horses.
Yeah. He's an Olympic gold medalist, 3-time PGA Tour Player of the Year. He won the Arnold Palmer. He's represented the United States in the Ryder Cup. Like, remember going back to the Ryder Cup on how well he played, and nobody really knew who he was. He was a good player. He was trending, and how he went on, how well he did. And, because he's played in Walker Cup events when he was younger, but, even in the recent President's Cup, right? So he's got a ton of experience, and we forget the fact that he's only 28. He seems like an old soul.
That's right. He's very mature. And he is underestimated, and some of the dates that you've mentioned there, we have to remember the tour wasn't fractured by that point, so there was a lot of different characters still playing on the PGA Tour, so it's easy for a talent like Scheffler to be unnoticed, just as you said. Now that those players have chosen a different path, Scotty's had a chance to rise up to the top.
And you were talking about dark horses. Do you have anyone in mind as far as a dark horse?
I think Oberg.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because he's, I mean, obviously he's a great player, but he's only been a relevant name for 2 years now. So seeing him put on a green jacket, I think would be he's probably not one of the favored to win because a lot of experience needed and knowledge needed in a course like that. But I think he's potentially got the game to do it.
Yeah, there's quite a few players. I don't know. I love to go for some of the live guys because nobody's been talking about them, right? So if you look at somebody who's like a super dark horse, why don't we talk about a previous winner like Bubba Watson, right? But Bubba Watson, he's making his 17th start. He won in 2012 and 2014. He's one of 18 players to have more than won once. So he's got the game, he's got the experience, and it's really cool to talk about someone like him. How about someone like Phil Mickelson?
Well,
Right?
back up to Bubba for a second. Are you talking about him making the cut or winning?
Well, I'm saying a pretty decent finish. I'm not saying he's going to win.
No.
But I like talking about these guys because they might have an outstanding round. I think when you look at someone like Phil Mickelson or someone like Bubba Watson, they'll pop up on the radar. Actually, Phil's got a way better chance. He's actually coming into his own and supposedly he's found his swing a little bit. He's been doing a lot of YouTube golf. But I guess we kind of forget that he's 54 and he's making his 32nd Masters start.
Yeah, that's insane.
Isn't that crazy just to even say that? Because a lot of these players aren't even 32.
Yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable. No, and you never know with Phil. He can just surprise you at any given moment, like he did with the PGA a couple of years ago. So
I think, a lot of these guys are going to be kind of blips on the radar. They might just have some amazing holes. They'll have some highlights, but it's a young man's game. Obviously, it would nice to see. Wouldn't it be crazy to just see Bernhard coming out of the gate and then leading the tournament after one round? Not that he would last or he'd be able to, but wouldn't that like a storyline like that be a crazy story?
100%. Well, what about Patrick Reed? Maybe his new body card might give him a sense of confidence and he ends up taking it down. Have you seen his bodyguard?
That is funny that you say that. Was it Patrick Reed?
I'm going to pop it on. I just...
well, let's give
screen share here. Look at this guy. He's a monster, right?
Does he have that much hate? Does he have that much hate, or that many admirers? I don't know, or is it both?
Well, the comments
are that size.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, anyone who's seen this post have a gander through the comments are quite funny.
I know a lot of people are not talking about live guys, but again, like John Cook said earlier, there's Koepka, there's obviously DeChambeau. There's also Neiman, right? But let me go back to Patrick for a second. Patrick's no slouch, right? Let's not forget he's still quite young. He's 34 years old, right? So he's right around Rory McIlroy's age. He's making his 12th Masters start, which means he has a ton of experience here. He has. I'm just reading a stat here. He has 12 finishes in 5 of the past 7 years, top 12 finishes in the last 5 of the 7 years, which is pretty great. He won in 2018. I know time flies by quickly. That was several years ago. But he's got a great short game, and there's no denying it.
Mike just responded. He is dialing in. So
okay, that's wonderful.
I've got another topic. Let's kick around for a couple minutes before Mike dials in here. And the rise of YouTube and all the stars, and YouTube is becoming a great entertainment source for golf. And Rory has adamantly spoken out against it. So my question is, will Rory ever embrace YouTube?
I think it's a sense of, again, I hate to say the fact that he's a bit of a head case. Maybe it's not the right terminology I'm using. Maybe it sounds a little harsh. He's got something going on where he doesn't like progress, or he doesn't like other people getting attention outside of the PGA Tour. There's a whole bunch of issues here. Be it Liv, his stance when he was on the player board, the comments that he made about his fellow competitors, which wasn't very respectful, in my opinion. Then him being a little bit of a hypocrite, backpedaling and then not wanting to talk about that. It's in the past. Well, he needs to address and be mindful that his comments really affect other players. And the rivalry happens because of things like that. We all know that those Live players are not only great players, but they're also fathers and human beings who have feelings and made choices in their lives. And why should you be judgmental, right, over something like that? Now, bad things were said on both sides. There's no doubt about that. But going back to your question, Mike, YouTube golf, it's hard to say why he would say that, where he said he didn't watch YouTube golf. However, he did go and do an episode with Horvat, right, on YouTube. So didn't he do an episode with Grant Horvat, doing long drives and things of that nature, which doesn't really make sense, right?
That was more, yeah, I'm just looking it up.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, to say the least, about that. And then, nothing wrong with Rory altogether. I've got nothing against him. Obviously, he's a fantastic player. Just like I'm not going to judge Tiger Woods' type of play based on his personal life, right? Back in the day, there was so many rumors and things going on and things that happened where people talked about Tiger and everything was swept under the rug. And we kind of elevated him as a person based on his play. But, I'm not going to judge him. These are two separate things. It's the same thing with, like, I don't want to bring up Trump, but it's the Trump debate, right? There's the person, and then there's the person who does the job, right? So in golf, we have the same thing. Guys who are great players, you don't have to like their personalities.
Tiger, when he played his best, was a bit of an asshole. He didn't acknowledge many people when he was in between the ropes.
Yeah.
Didn't talk to anybody.
But see, people don't talk about that, right? You see, it's that American legacy media pride that comes into place where they don't want to judge their own because they're the best at what they do. And so, but he got scrutinized. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of media that did scrutinize Tiger. So I wouldn't say that it's everyone.
No, it's not everyone, but he did take some slack for that. And then at the same time, he would be criticized for not performing. And when he's admittedly said that he needs to be in that deep horse blinders and a little bit angry, a little fiery, he needs to get to that level to be an optimal performance.
But it's funny you say that. Do you remember one of the only people in legacy golf media who would bring Tiger down would be Brandel Chambly?
Of course.
But you have to understand, Brandel came into the game right when Tiger was rising. So he started becoming an analyst at that time, and everybody was asking about Tiger. So he gave his honest opinion. So I do respect him for that, even though there's been a lot of hypocrisy with what he said and how he talks about golf right now. Brandel is very knowledgeable. Obviously, he was a player in the game. Doesn't mean he's I'd get along with him, or you would, or why we got banned from seeing his ex-posts. I mean, we brought on a few guests that talked about him, and so that happened. And so,
well, he banned our IG accounts, all of it. I mean, and we're a small pod, so but it's a badge of honor. It is.
I guess so. I guess so. It's silly, is what it is. It's silly, I'd love to have him on, and we could chat, we could talk, we could go back and forth, and we don't have to agree with each other. I mean, it's the same thing with politics, right? You're left, you're right. You can meet people in the middle. You could have your opinion, then go for a drink afterwards.
Yeah, that's a little more polarized these days, but that's a whole nother thing. So here comes Mike Morgan. He's in the waiting room. So Let's let him in.
All right. Well, that's great. This episode is brought to you by Northwestern Golf Club. So we're excited to have Mike Morgan on, who is with us right now. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Great to see you, Mike.
Great to be on.
We were just talking about the Masters earlier with John Cook, who was on the show and gave us a breakdown of the Champions Tour and what he's doing and his experiences over at the Masters. Then Mark Immelman came on, a fantastic episode. So if you're just tuning in right now, make sure you go back and share, and you could listen to all the predictions and jokes that we had going on. But right now we have Mike Morgan, CEO of Northwestern Golf Clubs. Very excited to have you on. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about Northwestern, Mark.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. And again, thank you for the opportunity. So Northwestern is an older brand. It was started back in 1929, came full circle really in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, really became the largest golf club manufacturer really of all time. They were making an incredible amount of golf clubs, almost 1 million clubs per month that they were building and shipping out of their Chicago factory. Fell on hard times, got out of their lane. They were really specifically where we are right now, which is an entry-level based price point product line. And in the 90s, the grandkids took over and decided to kind of go up against the major OEMs and kind of got out of their lane, and it cost them their market share. And it finally closed down the company in 2004, and that gave myself and my partner Joe Altamonte the opportunity years later. Actually, 2023 is when we decided to pursue that opportunity in the sense that we saw entry-level golf as being a great opportunity for a new company to come in. As we looked at names, we felt like, gosh, there's a lot of legacy and a lot of value in the name Northwestern. So we purchased the name Northwestern and got all the rights to the branding, and we decided to bring that brand back in its original position, which is in essence pricing that meets the average golfer's needs.
And are you going to have a full lineup of products, driver through a wedge and putter? Are you going to start with irons? What's the plan?
Yeah, we'll have full line of products. We'll have driver, fairway, hybrid, a full set of irons. We'll have wedges. We'll also have putters and golf bags. So we'll debut about June 1st.
June 1st.
Yeah, June 1st. We're working with our marketing partners to get a really good website up and going that's going to be pretty flashy, pretty strong in terms of its message to who we are, what we bring to the marketplace. And we're excited to really be in full swing, certainly by no later than June 15th in a big way as far as marketing the brand is concerned.
Well, that's really exciting. If you're just joining us, we got Mike Morgan from Northwestern Golf Clubs talking about the launch of Northwestern Golf. I find it fascinating that you talk about the history of a great American golf company like Northwestern Golf. Is it Nat Rosacco?
It was the Rosacco brothers, correct?
Yes, back in 1929. And what a great story. I mean, they sold more clubs than anybody else combined, from what I heard.
Exactly.
Right? So it's a great story, and it's a great solid brand. They started off making, like you said, high-end golf clubs. Then they went into making clubs for the everyday person. And I think the difference between what Northwestern is doing now from what you've told us is we're trying to get an affordable product. However, it's a high-performing product. Is that right?
That is correct. We looked at the opportunity to take this at a higher level in terms of its how it performs, its performance level. And we wanted it to be something that added real validity to the brand in the sense that anyone could hit them and get solid feedback. We've had anywhere from a tour player testing it who was really impressed to currently a a +5 handicapper who's hit our golf equipment is asked to basically come on board and play our golf equipment and leave a major OEM because he is so impressed with the performance of the product. And I don't want to take anything away from the major OEMs. I worked with a major company, Titleist Golf, for 35 years and loved every moment of it. And they're tremendous at what they do, as are Ping, TaylorMade, Callaway. We just looked at it and said, let's hire a really good design team to bring product to market. And that was Jeff Sheets out of Austin, Texas, that has a long history of designing golf equipment for major OEMs as well as independent companies. Excuse me. And we brought Jeff in and partnered with him 18 months ago to design the product. And then Jeff took us to our partner that we're currently with. We had 8 different manufacturers bid on partnering with the Northwestern brand. And we felt like that Barrage Tech, who makes a large number of products for the major OEMs, would be our best partner. And they wanted to be a partner with us. They are the leader in terms of metal woods and irons in terms of the major OEMs. So it was no accident that it was really good performing product, but we were really, really pleased once we started getting validation from really good players that said, well, this really feels good. I mean, this sounds really good. I was just in a meeting this morning with a major company that's in terms of doing, I'll just say who it is. It's X Golf. And X Golf was really interested. And once they heard about our product, testing it and using that as rental product to replace another brand that they had that they weren't all that pleased with because they heard about the quality. So it's something that we worked hard on, and we're really pleased that it's where it's at.
That's amazing. It's as I told you last week when we had a brief chat, I've got a vintage Northwestern putter in my garage, and I'm going to see if I can find out how old it is. I'm going to do some homework on that and get back to you. But it's really cool. Because today's in Canada, like a new driver is $850. So irons are a couple $1,000 Canadian dollars. So I think there's a lot of room in the market for new golfers, especially to jump in and not be so intimidated by prices, or just not even get into the game because the pricing is so shocking.
That is a great point, and really that is where we started and looked at it and said, who's our golfer? Who's our target audience? And we looked at it as a player that comes out of simulator golf or comes out of Top Golf and decides, hey, this is something I'd really like to continue to look at and maybe take to the golf course. And it becomes an issue when they walk into a retailer and see pricing that quite frankly knocks their socks off a bit. The other option is to get a box set, which maybe isn't exactly what they want to start with. They'd like to have a little higher quality product and be able to pick and choose pieces that go to it instead of just getting a box set that's already put together. So that's what we really looked at is who's our golfer. And that player, quite frankly, felt like we could lose that player out of the golf industry if they get kind of sticker shocked and say, I'm not going to spend $2,500 to $3,000. I'm not sure I like the game that much. I might just go buy a kayak and do something outside.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not sure about golf, but that's our player, and we're excited to be able to offer a men's set of steel shafted irons at $350 that perform really well. A driver, amazingly enough, that's just $200 that we've had just great feedback on. Fairways are $150, hybrids are $120, and it's just a niche that. There are some direct-to-consumer companies that are trying to fill that void a bit, but we're trying to do it more through mainstream retail and then also direct-to-consumer. So we're trying to fill the void in different ways. So that's where our price points fall, and we know who our market audience is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike,
this is amazing.
This is amazing. Thank you for joining us. Look out for Northwestern Golf Clubs. coming to a shop and store near you. This is going to be a revolutionary time in golf, and the launch date is in June, so we're looking forward to it. Hopefully you'll join us again, Mike.
I would be happy to. Thanks, guys, for having me on, and we appreciate all the golfers, Canadian, American, and around the world. Will be launching worldwide in June.
Can't wait to see it.
Okay.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah,
Take care,
have a
Mike.
good day, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
I'm glad Mike was able to join us today and give us an insight on Northwestern Golf. It's pretty exciting to hear about a kind of a legacy brand, really, an American brand that kind of has a revival, and it's going to be at a better price point for the average golfer. He mentioned that he had like Jeff Overton hitting the clubs and being surprised, and the number one amateur in the world. Maybe we could show those videos at some other time of them hitting actually these clubs. But let's finish up.
First brands that I used, just to jump in there before we sign off. But a neighbor of mine gave me a couple of clubs, and they were Northwestern. And like I said, I've got a very vintage putter in the garage. So it's one of the first brands that stuck in my mind until I got really into golf and learned a lot more about it. So yeah, it's great to see.
Also, if you're enjoying this episode, we've got a great Masters contest coming up with Shape and Swelter. It's a hat system, keeps you from sweating. You put it on the inside of your cap. I want you to remember, all you need to do is share this episode. That's all you got to do. If you see it, if you're listening to us, share it, and you've got a chance to win a whole bunch of packages. We'll send them right to your place, and we'll find you. And that's all there is to it. It's very simple. Shape and Swelter, a great hat system, and you can get them online. You go to Shape and Swelter. Make sure you follow them as well, guys. Let's finish up with some Masters picks. We're going to be doing more Masters next week, obviously. But Mike, your final thoughts about a Masters player, somebody that stands out, maybe somebody that we have not been talking about. I mentioned a few of them. I'm going to be, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to talk about somebody who really means a lot to Canadian golf. And he's one of 4 golfers that's playing at the Canadian Open. He's a small guy like me, 5'9". He's 54 years old. And he won the 2003 Masters. That's Mr. Mike Weir. Our acquaintance and friend Len Matisse lost to him that year. And it's just really incredible to see him out there. I'd love to see him make the cut.
Oh, of course, that would be epic if Weir could make the cut. The Canada would be cheering him on immensely. So is it likely? I haven't seen much of him this year, but you never know. When a player gets to the Masters and they have that positive memory from putting the jacket on, anything can happen. The course is playing pretty long, so if it's dry weather in the forecast, that will bode well for him. But then remember, 2003, it was wet. And it allowed, so a shorter player like Weir would struggle, but at the same time, the greens are receptive for some of his longer irons on his approach, and it worked well. So you never really know.
That's an interesting perspective that you have, because when he did win, or when he has placed well, he's always laid up on his par 5s. He depended on his short game, and that way he could get very precise. And his putter obviously was rolling in 2003 like never before. Mm-hmm. But that's a great analogy. Did you know this? I found this out this week. There was a players winners meeting with the board of directors at the Masters one year. And they were asked, all the players were asked what they thought of the layout of the golf course. And Arnold Palmer, put his foot down and said, some of these fairways are mowed towards the green where we get lots of roll, and other fairways are mowed towards the tee boxes where we lose yardage and they get stuck up in the fairways. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, we'll take that into account. And ever since then, they've been mowing towards the tees. So you got to be careful what you ask for.
Yeah,
and then Arnold took that, that reminds me, he took that theory and applied it to Bay Hill. He's one of the only tournaments where they mow everything towards the tees where the ball lands. You don't get the rollout.
Yeah, it's going to bite and grab it. So, yeah, sometimes it's better just to shut up. Just in general in life, just sometimes, just
Oh
like,
gosh,
let
get
it
me
slide.
started. Today's been a challenging day. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, that was great. Thanks everybody for tuning in. That was action packed episode, lots of guests, and make sure to follow us on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube, please. Engage with the content and follow our channels. It goes a long way. Share it if you can. It just takes a second. Those engagement hits really help the algorithm. And follow us on Apple and Spotify.
Yeah, don't forget, let me just say a shout out to Lagmaster Sports, your one place to shop for teaching tools. Paradax, your all-in-one golf cart. What a wonderful product they have. Shape and Swelter, if you share this episode, we're going to do a whole bunch of giveaways for the Masters. That's our Masters giveaway event. Raphael Golf, come see me if you're in the Oakville area, and we'll set up a lesson. We'll do something fun if you want to hang out with me for a little bit. Tea Time Tees, one of the best plastic tees on the market. Obviously, ECS agency for all your web needs and marketing needs. Make sure you go see ECS. And today's episode is brought to you by Northwestern Golf, launching their new set of golf clubs. Very exciting. And we'll see you guys next week.